Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm sorry for all the mess, folks. But so I wanted to have this because we're not able to have in-person meetings, and it's important that while we're all social distancing, we still um, are still talking to each other and still connecting and still being together as a community. Um, the the so what I'm going to do is just talk for a little bit and then hopefully open it up to our Ohio House Minority Leader, Amelia Sykes. And also Dr. NJ Akbar from our school board is here as well. And then we can have a little bit of discussion, hopefully not having the problems that we just had. So, so stay at home and social distancing have become the new norm, and we're sort of getting very close to getting past all of this, but we're not through it yet. And we want to make sure that we beat this before we, all go back and try to get back to the new normal of our lives. Um, the governor is beginning this week to unveil his proposals for what that will look like, lifting stay at home. So we will sort of figure that out as it comes up. Um, the so the city council is meeting virtually. We have our next meeting on this Monday, April 20th. We're going to meet every other month, every other week going forward. And we have those videos live streaming on YouTube. We're taking a lot of precautions at the city level to protect city workers who are risking themselves. Our public service department is cleaning all fire vehicles and police vehicles, and really the city is really down to the essential staff. Mayor Horgan has taken a lot of these steps. He's having weekly town halls. Next Monday at noon, he'll have a town hall. The following Monday at noon, he'll have a town hall. These are on the City of Akron Mayor's Office Facebook page. Testing is not up yet, but it is something that everyone's pressing for. That's obviously how we're gonna make sure that everyone's safe going forward. But as of right now, it's not something that's up in any significant way. There are a number of ways that you can contribute. The United Way has their emergency support fund. And then also there are, a number of organizations that are doing food, providing food to youth during this time. Akron Public Schools was doing this, but also the Your Pizza Shop on Exchange Street is also one of these, and people can make donations to that, to other groups. I know Social 8 restaurant in the Valley is also doing this. So there's a lot of ways to support this. So a couple other things. Sorry, I'm still a little shaken. The economic impact of this is going to extend beyond when we live stay at home. One thing that we want to make sure everyone knows is even if you're not eligible for Ohio unemployment, the new federal laws provide for $600 a week for most folks who are unemployed, even if they're gig workers or that kind of thing. And Senator Sherrod Brown has really been hammering this home, and you can find more information on the state's unemployment website. The stimulus checks are coming. Many of them have been direct deposited into people's accounts. The checks are coming physically for others. There are two things that I'd encourage everyone to do. I was going to put the links in the chat. I have them right here. Can't put the links in the chat. But the census, I would encourage everyone to take part in the census. And the it's my2020census.gov. And then also make sure everyone has a chance to vote. I know many folks already have, but the deadline to return your absentee ballot is April 28th in person, and it has to be postmarked April 28th or returned to the Board of Elections April 27th. You can go online to the Ohio Secretary of State's website to request that absentee ballot form, but again, that's coming up very quickly, so I hope folks have a chance to do that if they haven't already. I also hope you have a chance to share with others who might not know that, and make sure that everyone has a chance to vote, because obviously that's one of the things this election has been severely impacted by coronavirus. So now I'm going to try to have our Ohio House Minority Leader and State Representative Amelia Sykes. The problem here is that I'm not sure. Give me one moment. Okay, so I'm going to unmute Amelia and she'll be able to speak. She is a fellow Firestone High School graduate. She's been fighting for us at the state level. Not only does she have her law degree, but she also has a public health degree, which is particularly important and well suited to these times. And she's been doing a lot. I know many of us heard Dr. Amy Acton shout her out when talking about specifically about the racial disparities that we're seeing in coronavirus. But I'm really thankful for her getting on here, and so now we'll give it to her. Amelia, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Thank you, Councilman. Right. And thank you to everyone who's on this call. Really appreciate you making sure that there is a forum for us to discuss and talk and just connect, even if we can't do it in person. These types of conversations are very important, and I think helps all of our mental health a little bit while we're socially distancing, well, physically distancing, but not socially distancing, maybe we'll put it that way. So again, my name is Amelia Sykes. I am the state representative for Ohio's 34th House District, and if you live in Ward 8, I am your state representative. I also serve as the House Minority Leader, which means I lead a group of dynamic Democrats. There are 38 of us total in the Ohio House as we set forth a policy agenda, as well as make sure that we are representing and pushing for the Ohio promise of better lives, brighter futures, and jobs for everyone. So I want to talk to you a bit about what is happening at the state level. I'm sure many of you, if you have the ability, are aware of the 2 p.m. press conferences that Dr. Acton, Governor DeWine, and the Lieutenant Governor host, and they talk about the updates of the day and what's happening. They are primarily discussing the administrative issues, and being a legislator, while we're very much in tune and in conversation with what the governor and his administration are working on, there are things that the legislature is doing to help ease the burden of the coronavirus. Certainly there is a lot more that we could be doing, but I do want to go over some of the things that we have done, as we have not met in several weeks now. So we have a little bit different setup where we do not have the authority to meet remotely. One of the things that we did in a bill that we passed 2 weeks ago was allow local governments and school boards and commissions to meet remotely, but we don't have that authority. So in order for us to come in and do actions, we all have to go back to Columbus, get in this room where all 99 of us sit, but we did some social distancing the last time. And so it's one of the many reasons why we haven't gone back. Primarily our Speaker of the House has not been too keen on having us come back yet. And although we have several things that we need to do. So let's talk about what we have done. So 2 weeks ago, the General Assembly passed unanimously House Bill 197, which was originally a tax bill, but in order to get a vehicle that moved quickly, we used House Bill 197 to add some amendments and address it as the coronavirus the emergency coronavirus response bill. What did we do in there? We did 350 pages worth of things in there, but I'm going to cut that down very quickly and hit some of the highlights. First, we prohibited water shutoffs. We've been talking about washing your hands and staying at home, and home is very uncomfortable if you don't have water and you cannot adequately wash your hands without water. So that was an important thing, not only for the humanity of our constituents, but also to make sure that people can continue to comply with what we're asking them to do to stay healthy and keep the community healthy. We also eliminated the requirement to renew your license. And when I say license, that is a very broad term. So if you have a driver's license that is going to expire during the stay-at-home order, don't worry, you will not be penalized for not having renewed that. This also applies to many occupational licenses. So if you are a social worker, or if you are a nurse, if you are a barber or a beautician, if your license expires during this order, during this time, actually that we're in this emergency, don't worry about it. If you have questions, contact your state board, but we have relaxed that for the time being. Additionally, on the education front, and I know Vice President Akbar can probably talk about this a little bit more, we eliminated the requirement for state testing. That also included later a decision from the Department of Education that the third grade reading guarantee would be waived for the year. Additionally, any students who are seniors in high school who were on track to graduate will graduate, notwithstanding the fact that they have been out of school for several weeks now. The other part of the education is there are provisions that say how long you're allowed to do distance learning. We had to expand that beyond, I believe, 3 or 5 days that the law currently allowed. In addition, we expanded it to allow students who have special needs or who are on IEPs, they can have access to that, because currently, currently they can, but prior to us making the changes in 197, those students, we would be in violation of many provisions if we were teaching students with special needs or on IEPs remotely, and so we gave ourselves the ability to do that. As I said earlier at the top of my remarks, that we were able to allow local governments, boards, commissions to meet remotely or virtually, as so long as the public still has access to it. Many of our frontline services happen at the community level, at the local level, and hindering their ability to meet would have been a major problem. Consider all the money that your local governments, your city and your county, that they're appropriating right now, and school boards are doing a lot of things and making a lot of changes. If we did not make those changes in state law, they would not have been able to do that. Additionally, in order to get more frontline workers, we have allowed nurse anesthetists to expand their scope of practice. This was a bill that just got folded in, which has been vetted, so it is not one that we just threw in there without having talked about it, but it was a bill that has passed the House, and so nurse anesthetists now have additional ability in which they can practice, or their scope of practice. Additionally, nursing students who are graduating this year and who are on track to graduate will be able to enter into the workforce without having to take their boards. While that might sound problematic, it will not be, and there will be sufficient protocols at whatever location that they will be, but the testing, the National Testing Organization has shut down because of the coronavirus, and so we did not want to keep that many people from participating in the workforce, as well as anticipating surges from being a part of the solution to this problem. We also, you might know that today, April 15th, would have been tax day. We've extended that deadline to file your state taxes to July 15th, and it will be in line with your federal taxes. So if you were scrambling, trying to figure it out, take a deep breath. You have a couple more months, a few more weeks to figure that out. And the final thing I will talk about in House Bill 197 is we all recall the chaos that happened on March 16th about whether or not we were going to have an election the next day. House Bill 197 fixed a little bit of that chaos in the sense that instead of having an in-person voting, because we're still not sure about when people can kind of come out and play yet, in order to vote, you have to use a vote by mail system. And anyone on this phone who has not yet requested an application to vote, please, please, please do that before the end of the day. There are a couple ways you can do that. One, you can call the Board of Elections. If you don't have a printer, for example, their number is 330-643-5200. They will send you an application. You have to fill it out, send it back to the board, and they can get you a ballot. You can go to My Ohio Vote, I think I'm saying that wrong, ohiovote.org, and fill out the PDF version of the absentee ballot request form, send that to the board, they'll get you a ballot, and that way you can make sure that you are ready and prepared. The final way is you can just write down on a piece of paper your name, your address, the ballot that you want, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, issues only, whatever the political leaning of your choosing might be, the date of the election, which you can put as either March 17th or April 28th, and sign it and date it, mail that to the Board of Elections, and you will be able to get a ballot. Those are 3 ways you get your ballot. When you get your ballot, fill it out immediately. It has a postage paid envelope. Send it back immediately because it has to be postmarked by April 27th or dropped off at the Board of Election by April 28th. So that is all the election things. Very quickly, moving on to some other things. Yesterday, no, Monday, we have a bicameral legislative body called the Controlling Board that released funds that we got from the federal government, about $248 million that will go towards working through the coronavirus crisis. That money will be used for things such as testing, which has been woefully inadequate so far, masks and other personal protective equipment for our frontline healthcare workers, as well as providing some funds for our food bank and other summer food lunch programs, which that money can be used now since kids are not in school. The final thing I will say, and the last thing I was asked to talk about, was the health disparities that we are seeing in this. It is not surprising that there are health disparities in health outcomes. We see them from asthma, diabetes, infant mortality, maternal mortality, and it comes as no surprise that we are seeing the same as the impact of the coronavirus makes its way through our communities. Just today, Summit County Public Health released information that showed that while Black citizens make up 15% of the population, we are more than double the amount of cases of the coronavirus. When you hear that kind of information, please don't think that there is something inherently wrong with Black people, or we have done something wrong to subject ourselves to be infected. It is in fact social determinants of health based on policy decisions made before I was even thought of, like redlining and education policies and lending policies and food deserts and who's willing to invest in certain communities that make certain communities, and in this case, Black communities, places us at a risk that is much greater than our counterparts. And so as we are navigating through that, we will hopefully address our resources to those who need it most, just as we talked about our elderly population needing the care and the resources and the thoughtfulness. I'm hopeful that that conversation will change as well, because this creates a really interesting and unique opportunity for us to get in front of a health disparity before it perpetuates as the others do in other healthcare outcomes. So one thing I forgot to say, and sorry, Councilman, for taking so long, I know the unemployment compensation program and website has not been up to par or up to standards. The website is unemployment.ohio.gov. If you are now out of work because of the COVID crisis, one of the things that did happen in that House bill I discussed, it eliminates that 1 week waiting period, but that doesn't really mean anything because I know a lot of people are waiting, trying to get into the system, and it's getting kicked out, or they're getting error messages, or getting hung up on. And I am very, very, very sorry that this is not working, and this has been a certain failure of the administration, that this is not up to par. But please keep trying. Please keep trying. Please keep trying. It will eventually get there. I know that does not mean anything if you're trying to pay for your bills, but people know that this is an issue and it is being worked on. The additional $600 that the Councilman Malik just talked to you about, if you are already in the system, We have been told by the end of next week you will get that additional $600. However, if you are a 1099 worker or gig economy employee, that system has not been built and it is not anticipated for it to be up and running until mid-May. Again, I know that is not sufficient and it does not help anyone who needs those resources, but that is the information as we know it. So again, thank you for the opportunity to share what's been happening at the state, and I will stick around for a bit if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Leader Sykes. I really appreciate it. I think there's a lot there, and particularly the point about health disparities recognizes that these are coronavirus is shedding a light on underlying issues in our community that we're going to, that a lot of folks have been working to address for many years, but are things that we are, really going to have to confront with even more focus after we are through this initial crisis. And another thing is, when we look at the pay that we're giving to folks who are essential workers, often these are people making the least of all of us. And they're putting their lives on the line right now, bagging groceries at Acme or, working in a factory at Gojo trying to make Purell. And that's not that wasn't to be negative of those companies in particular. That's just to say that this is the economic structure that we have nationally and globally, and it's something that we have to address collectively. So I'm going to be a little careful here in terms of this, but if folks have questions for Leader Sykes, if you could raise your hand on the video. If you're not on the video, I don't have much of a solution for you because I'm not going to unmute someone without knowing who they are. But if you do have a question and aren't on the video, you can text me 330-730-4624. But any of the folks here on the video, does anyone have a question? It looks like Scott Foster here, so just give me one moment. Okay, Scott.
Can we hear? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So we're in an extraordinarily unique position. So first of all, my wife and my daughter both work at Acme. So God bless them. They're both like working their butts off to try and fill your online orders every day. And they go in at 4 a.m. and I don't see them until 2 or 3 in the afternoon, if I'm lucky. But where we are as a DJ business, it's extraordinarily confusing as far as if we are even allowed to get help, because right now what I'm seeing is there's and again, how do I say this the right way? We are getting money. We are making money. My wife and daughter are both working at the same time. I'm in a very precarious position because I'm about to lose potentially the entire summer of events. And as we do that, as brides and grooms move, the question is, how do we handle refunds? And all the money that we have coming in is literally going directly back out. It's a very strange situation because the way that things are set up right now, Akron has the grant program that's set up, which I've applied for the SBA, what's a EDIL loan or whatever that's called, right? It's a emergency disaster loan. At the same time, I can then apply for the Akron grant. The problem is every dollar that I'm going to be potentially getting to help offset our costs are probably going to be going back to brides that are canceling their events. So in this situation, it's very awkward because it favors businesses that are what I would call brick and mortar. We are a service industry, right? That's what we do. We do weddings. We do large scale events, corporate events. So this is, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do because all the money that we've got coming in will be going right back out to help people, because the last thing that I can do as a business is cancel their event and not refund them, right? So what's everybody's thoughts on that?
Sorry, thanks, Scott. It is obviously very difficult for particularly for folks who, are not in traditional brick and mortar institutions. Sort of our larger companies have the cash flow and the relationships with lenders to be able to weather some of these storms. But right now, this is hitting hardest on folks who don't have that huge cash flow, and for whom SBA was a small little dusty corner of the federal government until like last week, when we decided to pump like several trillion dollars through it. And so I know that none of that is a solution to your immediate issues, Scott. But I know that the city economic development folks are discussing these issues with businesses, and so certainly I can connect you with them. The Greater Akron Chamber of Commerce is also having a lot of webinars for folks applying to SBA loans. I'm going to listen in on one of those tomorrow, and with any luck, it's going to go better than this one did today. But so anyways, that's where I'll go on that. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. NJ Akbar, who is one of our representatives on the school board and one of our neighbors here in Ward 8. And he's going to give us an update on how things are going with Akron Public Schools. And I know they're currently on spring break. It has been a long spring break for the students, and it looks like it's going to get longer. Well, thanks for laughing at my joke.
No, so thank you, Councilman, and just really briefly, Akron Public Schools and our Board of Education, we have basically determined that the main focuses that we'll have initially was to make sure that any essential service or contract was taken care of. We also have been focused on our essential workers as well, and making sure that especially those who are hourly, that they are protected. So we passed a resolution to pay all hourly employees, including those who may not be able to work, who may not have been able to work due to COVID coming into all of our lives. We still were paying them until April the 10th. That was the first resolution we passed. And then we passed another resolution to pay individuals up into April 24th, which includes those individuals who are hourly substitute positions at who basically get paid if as they work, and they're typically on call status for the district. And we are looking at another resolution to protect all of our hourly employees, like our family liaisons, security, and some other critical nutrition staff, some of the critical positions that are hourly, that may or may not be working the same number of hours that they were working prior to COVID. And so that is something we're expecting to do at our next meeting on Monday. We have moved all of our meetings to virtual. And so if you go to apslearns.org, you will see our meeting information there. Every time we meet, we have had quite a few meetings actually since COVID. So we've had, we usually have 2 meetings a month. We've in the month of March, we had 6 meetings. And this month alone, we've already had 3 meetings. So we have been doing what we can to be responsive and respond to the most immediate needs. So this is spring break currently, so we're retooling our nutrition program so that we can make sure that schools that have ran out previously have a more adequate supply, and then those schools that were had more supply but not the right numbers. So we're looking at balancing those out, as well as ensuring that every student who needs it have a hotspot. So we just passed in our very last meeting on Monday. Or was it Friday? Wherever our last meeting was, we passed a resolution, or not a resolution. We passed to purchase 500 more hotspots. As you know, we've purchased 500 hotspots a few weeks ago when COVID first shut down the schools. And not so fun fact, this is day 30. So exactly 1 month ago, today we closed our schools. So we've been doing what we can. And the last thing I'll say is we've noticed that 95.8% of all of our students have connected online to their learning modules and into Google Classroom. So that is a really good thing. And for those remaining 900 students who have not connected, we've created these position called connectors. And so those individuals are going out to homes, making calls, trying to figure out if the hotspot is the issue, if they still need their Chromebook, all of those things. So that is what's happening with APS. And so Monday, the food program will start back up and hopefully everyone will be back in classes. And so if there's anyone here who are APS employees, I just want to say thank you for all that you've done. They've been working very hard to make sure that our students still get a quality education. And as some of you may know, some larger districts across the state are still, after 30 days, using calamity days and have only done enrichment, whereas our district have been able to do full-blown lessons. So that is the update from APS. If there's
Thank you so much, NJ. Again, same thing. If there are any questions for him, could you raise your hand on the video? All right, I'm not seeing any, but thank you so much, NJ. I really appreciate your update. I think we'll go ahead and briefly try to have some discussion. I appreciate everyone who's on here. Just parenthetically, just a second, Sarah, I see you there. But I apologize for what happened at the beginning of the meeting. I should have been a little bit more careful about how we, allowed participants to join and that kind of thing. If and when we do this again, it will be in a much more secure way so that can happen. But I do apologize sincerely for that. I don't think anyone here realizes quite how frustrated I am, although it's certainly shown. And it's with that, I'd like if folks can, I'm sure there are folks who have thoughts about how we're doing as a community, have questions, have ideas about how you're coping, that kind of thing. So if you would like, raise your hand. I know we had one here, so I'll give it to you, sir.
Yeah, I thank the state representative and thank the school board for the information. We get a lot through the governor's daily thing and through the Beacon Journal and so forth. What I'm most concerned about is right here in our ward, Ward 8, things such as, do we have any problems at Rocky Knoll or some of the nursing homes in Ward 8? Also, how about the robbery or the whole police activity? Is it up or down, and in what areas? We get a lot at the state level and so forth, but we don't get much right at Ward 8. That's what I'm interested in. Seamus.
Sure. Well, certainly, I think I would be the appropriate person to address that. As far as talking about care facilities like Rocky Knoll, it is my understanding that there have been cases at Rocky Knoll. I know that there is obviously for privacy reasons, they've been reticent to disclose specific information about patients. But I know that the state passed a bill, I believe yesterday, requiring some disclosures of information relating to cases. And so I believe that information will be forthcoming soon, and I think should be in the Beacon Journal. Obviously, that's something that is very important to many people. There are many of us who know people who we care about who are there at Rocky Knoll or at other care facilities, and these are places that do a yeoman's effort in their care for people. But obviously, it can be a nexus for the spread of this disease. In terms of crime, there has not been a significant uptick in crime. Obviously, with people being home, I think things like sort of burglaries are down because folks decide to go on the internet and bomb Zoom meetings instead of break into a house. But I've been communicating with Officer Aaron Brown, who's our neighborhood response officer. He wasn't able to be on the call tonight, but certainly I can direct folks to him, and I can ask him about specifics. One thing that APD is concerned about is sort of smash and grab, kind of things targeting businesses that might be closed. That is a concern. That hasn't been something that we've seen on a widespread. I've seen 1 or 2 reports of things, nothing particularly serious, but obviously at a time when all of these businesses are already hurting, it is a very concerning thing. So I know that the Akron Police Department is going through and proactively reaching out to businesses and organizations and updating their contacts and talking with them about safety precautions. So I think that that is something that they're very focused in on. That being said, police officers are and firefighters are risking themselves when they go out every day. And it's another instance of folks doing a difficult job. And I hope that again, after this crisis, that we can sort of think through more ways to support them. I know I feel very bad because the biggest thing that our fire chief Clarence Tucker focuses on is firefighter safety. Right, there's so many carcinogens, so many things in their day-to-day work that threaten their lives. And now we add another thing on top of that. And so, that's something that I worry about a lot, but they are out there doing the work. They're out there patrolling. So I'm not concerned right now about sort of law and order for the most part. I think we're all kind of hunkered down and taking this thing day by day. Are there other folks who have questions or thoughts or comments if you want to raise your hand? All right, Reverend Stephanie Lee from Christ Woodland Church.
Hey, how are you? And don't worry about that stuff that happened at the beginning. I think we're all able to just move past that. Yes, I have 2 issues. First of all, the one that you mentioned it in the beginning, the fact that we don't have the coronavirus testing yet in the area. What exactly is what's the holdup? Why do we not have that? Is it do you know when it's coming, when it will happen? I'm really concerned about that. The other thing, number 2, is nationally or on any of the, well, with this issue of so many people being lost, I know I'm seeing that in Summit County, we have 16 deaths at this point, and half of those were at Rocky Knoll. And so obviously there's people probably in our ward who have lost people. There's been deaths, and we're not able to gather and have prayer services or any kind of memorial. And I know that the names are private, but is there any way, like I would like to do something maybe Sunday or maybe during the week, I don't know, but that we just acknowledge the deaths and so people aren't mourning by themselves so much, because this is a big hole, and I'm hearing a lot of heartache because of not being able to acknowledge the loss of loved ones. And as the death toll goes up, I think that we just need to do something. I don't know if the names are at all public about the people who have passed away already. If they were, I could do something as much as even lighting a candle for the different ones who have passed, and having a time of prayer. But it would be, I really want to be able to, as a community or even as a ward, or if that be, or whatever it is, to do something to acknowledge people's grief. So those are my two issues.
Thank you so much. I think those are both very important issues. First, in terms of testing, I don't have a great answer for you. I know that this is something that the mayor has been talking a lot about. He is really, I think they're having daily conferences with the mayors and the governor. And one thing that he is really pushing, but my understanding is that it's sort of a supply chain issue, and that there just isn't the number of tests right now and supplies to be able to have a thorough testing process right now. I know that there are plans to put together a specific geographic site for testing. They want to hold off on announcing where that is until they can deliver the tests. But I know that everyone wants to get testing done as quickly as possible, because that's the way we're going to be able to, see who has had it and who has not, and pinpoint carriers. To the other point about people who have passed away, this is a very difficult thing. I think we, as a community, we in normal times we grieve in private largely, and so this only redoubles that, and it makes it very difficult for people. I can't imagine people losing a loved one and not being able to be there, and not even knowing that they passed away until after they passed away, and hearing that from a nurse or a doctor. But and just this past Saturday, I'm sure many folks saw that Dan Spack, who was the engineering teacher, my teacher at Firestone, passed away unexpectedly. And it doesn't appear that it was coronavirus. It was a negative test, although they're not sure about false negatives. But there were actually 2 articles in the newspaper about how people are grieving for that. Because that was public. Folks organized a procession of cars to drive by his house and wave to his wife, Mary, and the family. I think there's something like that. There was another a teacher who passed away, I think at Stewart Elementary School. I think, again, unrelated, I believe. And there was a similar thing that was done for them. I think that, though, to Reverend Lee's point, if there's a way that maybe we can have some kind of commemoration, I think the names are going to be private in all respects, and it's hard to determine whether a family is okay with it being public. And so I think for a lot of them, we're not going to know. But I think that maybe there's something we can do, and I'd like to talk more about that with you offline, about ways that we can honor people, because it is, I think, like I said, I think we're too private in our grief, and this only compounds that. I think we had Gina K. Maddox here had something to say. Just a moment.
Hello, Shamus. Hello, fellow neighbors. Shamus, I'm wondering if the city or the county, at least the health officials, have decided when they're going to let the public know about any cases in the local nursing homes. Some of us in the community have relatives in the nursing homes, and I'm able to do a Zoom conference with my loved one, but we're not allowed to have any information yet as to whether or not there have been any people infected in those nursing homes. They said they were going to publish a list and let people know exactly which nursing homes have been impacted.
Yes, thank you. And I see here actually that this afternoon, unfortunately, Rocky, to I think Reverend Lee's point, Rocky Knoll has confirmed, unfortunately, that 7 of their residents passed away from coronavirus. That's that number is something that I wasn't aware of before today, and is really distressing. Like I said, I believe that the law was passed yesterday that will require those disclosures. But I think it was like 24 hours the disclosures were required, and so we should know if there are other locations where there's an issue. I know Rocky Knoll had been public about it being an issue prior to this. I don't believe had specifically spoken to the number of fatalities. Just a moment.
Hi, Shamus. Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay. So the county, I'm Sandra Kurt, I'm Summit County Clerk Reports, and the county has been having weekly conference calls with the countywide elected officials and public health. And Donna Skota told us that with the nursing homes, that they were not required to disclose. Rocky Knoll chose to, but that even though it wasn't public, the like EMS services and the other people that are in that industry all knew how many cases were at each nursing home. And if somebody was considering going to a nursing home, that nursing home had to disclose to them if they had a case there. So even though it wasn't known to the general public, it was known to people of concern that that it would be important for them to know.
Thank you so much, Sandra. And you know, I think to echo that point, a lot of our institutions have been hard at work, sort of trying to set in place policies that will try to prevent the spread. And often we are not aware of those policies in depth unless they sort of, an issue comes up and then they explain what their policies were. I know that, you know, people have raised issues about you know, state prisons and local jails. And, you know, I reached out to our Summit County Sheriff's Office this week and, you know, was really impressed by the degree to which they have consciously reduced the jail population to several hundred below the maximum, doing everything they can to limit things. Similarly, Oriana House is doing the same thing, really trying to put in place as many protections as possible. So, you know, it is really devastating news to hear for all of the folks at Rocky Knoll and their loved ones. But I think also, you know, sorry, going back to the other point about how we might commemorate things, my city council colleague Sharon Connor, I think, had an idea. So I'll go ahead and unmute her.
Oh, I thought maybe you could do like a memorial garden or a planting somewhere in one of the community gardens or parks in memory of the people in the area who passed away.
And I think that's definitely, you know, once we get on the other side of this, that's something that we can look at because, you know, there may well be a corner of, you know, a park. Maybe it's, you know, Will Christie Park that's over by Rocky Knoll, which is not in my ward, but I believe it's Councilman Swirsky's ward, but or maybe Councilman Neal's ward. But in any case, you know, there will be opportunities to try to memorialize and commemorate this crisis. Other people who have comments or thoughts or questions, just a moment.
Know about Rocky Knoll till just now.
Did you have something to say, Councilman Swirsky? Go ahead.
Coming? Okay, yeah, I think Sharon's idea is really good. I wanted to make a quick comment about the Akron Public Schools. I think it's really impressive how they've reached out to their students, made sure they had the right equipment, and then a follow-up with this connector program. I just want to say I'm really impressed and appreciate the work that went into it, and just making sure that while we're on kind of a break here, the students are still connected to the schools, and that is the top leadership, Mr. Akbar and others. You deserve a thumbs up, which I gave you one earlier, but I guess I'll say it now verbally. So thank you, Mr. Akbar.
Thank you, Councilman Swirsky. I believe, Reverend Lee, I believe you raised your hand.
Yes, I just wanted to add to the person who was asking about other nursing homes. The only other one that I saw listed was Stowe Glen had someone there. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Stowe Glen was the other one. That was the only one I saw listed. That's all.
Thank you. Other folks with thoughts or questions or ideas or advice? Just a moment, Jack. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was talking to my wife. We're having an issue with the update. We didn't get the computer started, so I'm on my phone. Thank you.
Other folks who have thoughts or questions or comments? Okay, well, seeing no further ones, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, I want to apologize for what happened at the beginning, and we'll regroup and make sure that that doesn't happen again. But I do appreciate everyone being here. To just go back to a point I touched on earlier. Many people there have passed away, but Mr. Spack, who was one of the teachers at Firestone, had a huge impact on so many people. And I've been thinking a lot about it because he had this kind of just bubbling positive energy that was always there. And I think in this time, that's the thing that we're all sorely in need of. This all the stuff just takes a toll day after day on you. There are certainly folks who are in much more risky or dangerous situations than those of us who are able to work from home. But I think we're all going to have to come through this and all going to have to lean on each other and all going to have to be kind to each other. So I appreciate it. Let me turn it over to Councilman Swirsky for a moment.
I just want to thank Shamus for pioneering this and having the courage to try this new technology and to share it with people. And, I think all of us here know, what the clowns did, and in no way has anything to do with you, Shamus. It's just clowns out there, and they're going to, when they see somewhere to jump in front of an audience, they might do something. So, but please, thank you for having the guts to make this happen and to set an example for other council people. Really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate that, Sarah. And just a second, we have two other folks, so I'll go to you guys in turn. Go ahead, Scott.
To piggyback on what Richard just said, yeah, don't worry about all that. That's all nonsense. All you have to do in the future is just, as you send out the invite, you know how you do your email list, just make sure that you include that password along with the invite, and that should be able to lock people out. So, and then just as it's happening, just delete people. But yeah, dude, we love you, man. Come on now.
I appreciate that, Scott. I think, no, there are ways of doing this that are more of like a webinar, and so that it doesn't automatically have people's videos pop up. And, I think even beyond a password, again, if we do this again, it's going to be much more secure, and that's never going to happen again. So here we go. You had a comment, sir?
No, I just wanted to thank you for doing this as a senior citizen who grew up without television to start with. I've been, thanks to Zoom conferencing, been talking to relatives in New York State and Pennsylvania and now locally right here in Akron. And I appreciate that very much, what you've done. I hope you keep doing it.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. And, we're all just doing our best. So with that, unless there's anything further, I will go ahead and adjourn this. But again, thank you all. And look forward to seeing you again on Zoom or in person. Take care.